Measure 50 was passed in 1997, and that gave an immediate about a 10% drop in taxes.
Did you know that the maximum assessed value is only allowed to increase by a limited amount every year? This is a result of Measure 50, which was passed in 1997, but the way it works can be confusing. Keep watching to find out exactly how it works and what this means for your property taxes.
Hi, I'm Bill Mance with Jackson County Close-Up. Thank you for joining us today. We're here with Dave Harris-Smith. Dave is your Jackson County Assessor. So thank you so much for joining us today.
I appreciate the chance to be here and visit with you and let the public understand what we do.
There's a couple of pieces of legislation that have a big impact on your department. One is Measure 5 and the other is Measure 50. Give us a little bit of background on how those two pieces of legislation affect you and affect all of us here in Jackson County.
Before Measure 5, which passed in the early 90s, the tax bill was simply the real market value, what a property would sell for, times the tax rate. Property owners weren't happy with that. A property tax revolt was brewing, and finally in the early 90s, taxpayers put out their own ballot measure and got Measure 5 passed.
Okay.
And Measure 5 didn't do anything to the real market value. That pretty much was left alone. But a cap was put into the tax rate calculations. It was required now that the tax rate be in two groups, and we combine the groups to get a consolidated rate. Group 1 would be all of the taxing districts that are considered non-school. So county tax rate, city tax rate, Rogue Valley transportation tax rate. So if you added them all up, the cap was $10. If you added them all up and the rate was $12, well, that's 20% higher than 10. So all of those individual rates, the county, the city, they would take a 20% reduction. Individually, they'd have to be reduced 20%, so when you totaled them, it would equal the 10% cap. Same thing for school. They were grouped, and the cap rate on them was limited to 5. If you added them up and they were under 5, the cap rate didn't affect the tax statement.
Okay.
And on the government, where the limit was 10, if you added them all up and they totaled 9, well, then there was no effect on someone's tax statement. So that went through, and that did provide a significant amount of property tax relief, but like I said, if the tax rate was 9 and the cap was 10, you didn't get any relief. So there was still boiling, stewing going on in the property tax system about wanting a fairer tax that had more control on growth, and Measure 50 was passed in 1997. Okay. And that gave an immediate about a 10% drop in taxes, and tried to put a growth control the growth on property taxes. So that was something that Measure 5 didn't do. And obviously, when Measure 50 passed, it was a better benefit than Measure 5.
Okay.
And people recognized that, and they saw reduced property tax. I can understand how some people might get confused.
Yeah.
And they believe the benefit of Measure 5 having the cap rate and the benefit of Measure 50 of having a maximum assessed value, which is far below real market value, they think that the current bill is generated using the benefit from this one times the benefit of this one, and they think they're both happening in there at the same time, but they're not. They're separate calculations. The reason I say that because I hear, well, there's a cap, taxes are capped, and so that affects the tax rate only under Measure 5, not under Measure 50.
So when you calculate a piece of property to establish a tax value with both How do you apply that to the tax rate?
We calculate the tax under Measure 5, we calculate the tax under Measure 50, and the lowest tax is what shows on the tax bill.